So, becoming a Christian. In the second video, I mentioned that Jesus made himself very unpopular because he didn't fit in with the society around him. He didn't do what was considered normal. And so eventually the Jews who controlled the Jewish society, especially the religious ones, sought Jesus' death because he didn't fit in. And sadly, his followers would have the same problem because they would copy him, and they then started not to fit in with the normal things within society. This is why the early Christian church, or the early Christian followers, ended up being persecuted. So to follow Christ is not very popular. Also, as the disciples got to know Jesus more and more, he started to train them, not just in developing the same qualities that he had, but he trained them to talk to others about it as well and share the love that Jesus shared them, they were to share with their neighbours. So he sent them out in twos. First, he sent 70 out into the regions in Judea, in Israel, and they went off, did their preaching for the day, came back, and they were thrilled because people were taking notice. Villagers were coming out and talking to them. It's a little bit harder today because we've got all these electric bells and cameras, and you can't get into high-rise flats. But they went out, they got results. So he was training them to share their faith with others and to let their light shine. So that's part of what Christians need to do, because if you love your neighbour and you've got good news, then you'd share it with them. And if you love your neighbour and you knew that there was, I don't know, a fire, a forest fire coming, and their neighbours could be affected, if you didn't warn them, you wouldn't love them, would you? So Christians, once you become a follower of Christ, you need to warn them, communicate with them, express your love for them, and maybe they'll say, well, I like you, I want to be like you. How did you become so kind and loving? And then you can explain, can't you? Share your faith. He says this here. Just before he was about to be arrested and to die, the day before, he said this to his disciples. He says, John 14. He says, you heard that. He says, I'm going away, and later I will come back to you. If you loved me, you would rejoice that I'm going to my Father in heaven. But they didn't understand. He says, I will not speak to you much more, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has no hold on me. So the trouble behind the activities on the planet within society involved a superhuman ruler and his following demons who would be influencing the planet. And hence there's more involved that's against Christians than just what we see with our eyes. Because Satan, it says, Jesus had a conversation with him and he said, go away, leave me alone. But Satan, Jesus acknowledges the temporary ruler, one who misleads the governments and the religions and the commercial system of the world. He says this, he says, the world is to know that I love the Father and I'm doing just as the Father has commanded me to do. He says, if you remain in union with me and my sayings remain in union with you, he says, I will send a helper, the Holy Spirit. He says, my Father is glorified in this, that you're bearing much fruit and prove yourselves my disciples. So once a Christian has dedicated their life to Christ and his Father, then they need to let their light shine. He says, just as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Remain in my love. And if you observe my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have observed the commandments the Father has given me. These things I have spoken to you, so that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be made full. This is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. Now, love is a very strong, powerful, emotive word. And this is the central quality that remains in the universe. It comes from God himself. Jesus displayed it. And if we as his followers display that quality, it will enhance our friendships with one another and other people and strangers. It'll enhance our family, because that love will, and it will make us happy in ourselves. It will give us joy. Did you notice that? So he says this finally, he says in chapter 15, he says, these things I have commanded you, that you love one another. If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were part of the world would be fond. Human society would be fond of you if you're part of it. Because you're no part of human society, and I've chosen you out of the world, for this reason human society hates you. So to be a Christian is not an easy course, but we can get through it with help and with keeping this love, finding other people that are following Christ in the same way, sticking together like a herd of sheep. Jesus described them meek. And he promises that we'll be kept safe. And he said, love conquers everything. There are other videos on this website that explain about Jesus returning to save the human race and sort out those who are ruining the planet, so that those who are ruining the planet will not continue to do it. So there we are. That concludes my series of 4 videos on how to become a Christian. I'm sure there's a lot more. And if you've got anything you want to ask, please make a comment, or any suggestions are very welcome as well. Thank you very much, and God bless you all and his son, Jesus Christ. Thank you.